Hi, we're talking to Michael Ventura again, and today we're going to kind of wing it and talk about pitching scripts and that experience going to the studio and or on the flip side being asked to write a certain script. And so I'm going to ask you first: was there was there a particular script you worked on alone or with Big Boy where that you guys had a lot of hope for and that you put a lot of work into that you pitched and thought might get made and was there any situation like that you can elaborate on?
There was a situation very like that. It
Yeah.
was right after we got the. It was before they started shooting Rhodey, it was in pre-production, and we had an agent at. I want to say ICBM, but that's the guy that
No.
does it. It, 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 I'm not sure that it still exists. It was a big agency. It was in Beverly Hills, and it had initials like ICM, but or
Mm.
CMI or something like that. But this is 40 years ago, so uh, I know it. I know it's changed, and all the personnel have retired and that kind of thing. But in any case, we had an agent. We got an agent who became a big time guy. I don't want to use his name. Uh, and he
How did you go about getting an
he had
agent?
basically, let's see. First, we had Zalman's King's agent. He was the one, as you remember, who got uh, through whom we got the roadie deal.
Right.
And and not to put too fine a point on it, but we got cheated pretty good on that one. And Zalman thought we were going to sue him. Rest in peace, Zalman. I'm not bad mouthing you. He thought we were going to sue him. And Big and I had a meeting, and it was through Zalman that we even got into the film business. Neither one of us was thinking of getting into the film business, writing scripts. We didn't come to town to do that. We came to town to be newspapermen, columnists, writers. And and literally, I had never thought of writing a script, and Big had never thought of writing a script. That's why his first question to me was do you think we can do this? When he was approached by Zalman to the John Wesley Hardin script that we talked about, uh, and and I said we've been looking at movies all our lives, and we can't do it. We should go home. And not that we had a home to go to much, but okay. But uh, so we had a meeting with Zalman, and he asked for at his house, which was in Venice before it became fashionable. He had a nice house with with uh, with carved merry-go-round animals.
Yeah.
Some merry-go-round and it was had a kind of magical thing about it. In any case, he was nervous, and Big spoke for both of us when he said, "Zalman, that's not our style. Uh, you got us into the film business. We wouldn't have gotten into the film business without you." So, and I said, like a Sicilian, it's the cost of doing business. Uh, no, we're not going to sue you. We wouldn't feel right about that. And because we had that very old-fashioned cowboy movie thing, you know.
Yeah.
we 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 wrote together. You know, sue somebody you rode with, you know.
Yeah.
And to put it mildly, we were not Hollywood types. And
Well, you're not court types either.
yeah, we're not court types at all.
It's better.
I'll settle my own.
It's
Thank you
better to
very
just
much.
stay as far away from court as possible. I find.
Yep. Yes, definitely. And and so I don't know how we got this agent, except that he was brand new at the time. He rose very quickly and became a big name, but he was brand new at the time, and I think think Zal put feelers out, and we already had the deal from Rhodey. So we were hot. For about 4 weeks, we were hot. and Rhodey was a go picture at United Artists, and it hadn't been cast yet, and we were hot. So our agent had a Hollywood kind of friendship, which usually involves rivalry and this and that and the other nonsense, but still a friendship, with a man named Mark Rosenberg, who was I don't know what their titles are. And not because I'm forgetting, as I often do at this age, but because they didn't really have, they didn't call him the director of Warner Brothers. He was head of Warner Brothers.
Studio executive.
Yeah, I guess the head studio executive at Warner Brothers.
Okay.
He didn't have a title as far as we were concerned.
Yeah.
And he met with us. He was about our age, kind of East Coast, had a beard, and we talked very easily. We liked him. He liked us. And he said, look, you guys, I'm trying to get a deal to have a movie duo, a little like Kirk Douglas and Burt Lancaster in the 50s. I want to get Clint Eastwood and Burt Reynolds together in a movie, a kind of comic adventure. And at the time, Burt Reynolds was a bigger star than Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, huh? Yeah.
Clint Eastwood was still pretty much identified with westerns.
Well, Dirty Harry.
And Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
And he had just started directing his own pictures. The Outlaw Josie Wales and High Plains Drifter. He was just getting a reputation as a director. I think he's one of the best directors of his generation. Old-fashioned, but really good.
Yeah.
But and I said so in print at the time before this meeting. I said at the end of the 1970s. I wrote about overlooked people, and I said he's overlooked as a director. Outlaw Josie Wales and High Plains Drifter are really good.
Yeah.
And it was one of my few prophecies that actually panned out. In any case, Mark Rosenberg had this very bright idea to get them together in a picture. As a duo, like Clark Gable and Spencer Tracy, like Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas made a bunch of movies together in the 50s.
Yeah.
And early 60s. And we thought, oh my God, yeah, a comic adventure kind of thing. And I had just discovered Las Vegas, because it was the first time I had money. And the Las Vegas of that time was totally different from the Las Vegas of since the late 80s or so. It was still just a little city in the middle of the desert. It didn't have skyscrapers. The casinos weren't big yet. It was still very much the more like the Las Vegas of Ocean's 11 than the Las Vegas you see now. If you fly over it, and it's enormous. It takes up the whole valley.
Yeah.
And even along the strip, you've got Dubai style skyscrapers, and we thought, yeah, Vegas, and we came up with a working title, The Joker and the Dealer, and the basic idea was that we were working with was that Clint Eastwood would be a dealer, and Burt Reynolds would be a stand-up, not on a big venue, but in the casino's little venue. They always have 2 or 3 in those days, anyway. And it'd be a mystery. It'd be this and that. So we were gonna. He said, "Come up with an idea." So we came up with that idea, and we thought it was really good. But we wanted to present it in the spirit that we write it. So we wrote a treatment, 2 pages, very concentrated, about Kirk, Burt Reynolds, and Clint Eastwood would be aluminum siding salesmen. And because aluminum siding salesmen have lives too. And Burt Reynolds would be realizing he's gay. And in the midst of this, there'd be some mafia, and there'd be some this and that. And we plotted it out actually pretty well. And so it's 1979, and so it's autumn of 1979. So Birdie was about to shoot, so it was about September, I think. And we go to our meeting with Mark, and we say, "Yeah, we hand him the treatment." He said, "You wrote something?" Because in that Hollywood and in this Hollywood, writing something for nothing is rare. Once you're meeting with a studio boss, when you're meeting with a studio boss, you get paid to write something. But we weren't getting paid to think about a story. But that you usually don't get paid. But to actually put something on paper, you get paid. And so he was delighted to get something for nothing. And he starts reading it. Right. Yeah.
So this is like a practical joke that you
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We
Got
were totally deadpan.
Okay.
Yeah, we got something. We're totally deadpan. He's reading it, and he gets to aluminum siding salesman, and then he gets to Burt Reynolds coming out, and he finally starts to laugh. And he laughs and laughs. He almost laughs himself off the chair. And then we told him our story for our idea for the Joker and the dealer. We softened him up. He saw that we could be funny.
Yeah.
Do a thing that was very different from Rhodey, but had funky humor and that kind of thing. And he liked the idea of Vegas. And we got a deal. And we wrote what we thought was a pretty good script. Now, he wanted to give us a 2-picture deal after that meeting. But our agent, who was playing agent games, because they're not really your agent, they're in it for them.
Right.
They're not. He didn't want a 2-picture deal. He convinced us, no, don't get the 2-picture deal. We'll get more money for this deal, and then you'll be in a stronger position later. Well, there wasn't any later.
Yeah.
But Mark liked the script, and right around then, Mark had a script shooting in Abilene, Texas. And he went down there and had a heart attack and died.
No.
The project died with it.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Gosh. Wow.
So 1 minute we're in this position where we're meeting with the studio boss. We were too green to know how rare that was.
Yeah.
We were way too green. I mean, we weren't kids, but we were way too green in terms of Hollywood to know how rare that was. We were way too green to know that completely unknown, and we walk into Hollywood and we have a studio deal before the first year is out.
Yeah.
I spent the next 25 years that I lived in Los Angeles with a lot of people just banging on the door trying to get in, and the door opened for us. We didn't even knock.
Yeah.
But the deal went south, along with our careers, basically. we got because Rhodey tanked. It didn't make money. It wasn't the big splash they wanted it to be, and it came out the same week as Blues Brothers.
Oh yeah.
We had 2 rock and roll comedies coming out the same week, and one was Blues Brothers with Saturday Night Live stars, and one was us with Meatloaf, and it just didn't carry the day. So we weren't hot anymore. So studio heads weren't going to take a meeting with us anymore, and we wrote a script, paid to write a script called Monroe, Monraux, about the music, where the music came from, all that stuff we've talked about. That was a good script too. It wasn't a comedy. It was a serious New Orleans mystery. Never went anywhere. I don't know why. A lot of good scripts never go anywhere. In those days, people were very shy of, it turned out, of shooting in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Because Louisiana was the most corrupt place in the country. And it was like, Ginger Varney's tried to start a business in Vietnam long after the war. And you had to bribe so many people, and they kept on changing the terms of the deal. She was there for about she and partners, I don't know who, were there for months, better part of a year, until they finally realized there's no business here. We can't do it this way. You could if you're rich and you could really buy the people, but they weren't rich. They were going and trying to make deals. They had a lead. I forget what it was. And then she called me and said, a Cambodian general wants me to ghostwrite his autobiography. And I said, get on the next plane. And she did.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because there was in the 70s there was like a whole wave of Southern movies, right? Like there was a weird kind of they actually did make a bunch of movies in the South. Like, I mean, what comes to mind is like Gator and those kind of like moonshine action movies. I guess they were for the Southern audience or something. Like they would actually make movies for the South back then. But that kind of died.
They made a couple of movies. You don't find many movies made in New Orleans, at least before Katrina. Later, they made some movies, kind of overproduced noir films that were set in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Kevin Costner was in one, and
there was that one with the Lisa Bonet and Mickey Rourke.
Right.
I forget what it's called, but yeah.
But in any case, Big and I got a few more deals, and then nothing happened. And I don't know if I told this story already, but we went to a meeting with a small production company that had big ideas. And they wanted us to write a comedy about a man whom women felt irresistible.
Yeah, right.
And you're laughing. I must have told you this.
You did tell me this one, but tell it again anyway. Cause it's funny.
And I let them talk for about 15, 20 minutes, and I said, does his mother find him irresistible? and basically, these guys are so shocked. And one of the other us, we had Big and I knew how to signal each other. It's not like we had signals rehearsed.
Yeah.
But
an intuition.
We got out of there fast.
Yeah.
And I said at the elevator, I said, this is it, man. I'm not doing this anymore. And he said, nah, let's not do this anymore. And then with Echo Park, and I don't know if we talked about this, with Echo Park, Robert Dornhelm had made a movie called She Dances Alone about the great dancer Nijinsky's daughter who lived in San Francisco. It was a semi-documentary movie. Bud Cort was in it, I believe. And I liked it, and I reviewed it well. And I think I interviewed him, and we got along. And he came to me and said, could you write a movie about Los Angeles that nobody writes movies about? The Los Angeles that at the time, Silver Lake, Echo Park, they were dicey neighborhoods. They weren't places you necessarily wanted to live in the rest of your life. Most people, upwardly mobile kind of people, they weren't upwardly mobile places at the time. deliverer and a woman who does stripping telegrams. Because he'd been interested in the stripping telegram deal, the phenomenon.
Yeah.
That was brand new, and it was very LA at the time. And he said, would that be a symbol for LA? So that came from him. But then I said, I got a piece to deliver. I got a woman who does stripping telegrams, but she has a kid. And if you want me to make a story out of that.
So we already talked. We did a whole Echo Park thing.
Yeah. So that was, both of these were unusual kinds of film deals.
Yeah.
Because usually the process doesn't happen that way. And in my career, that's why my career isn't very useful to anybody else. I got a good agent out of that. She's retired now. Her name was Brenda Beckett. Honest, understood the kind of thing I could do and not do. So an understanding agent in Hollywood, it was rare. And she wasn't big time, but she wasn't small time either. She had a niche of her own and in between somewhere. And she got me some meetings that how can I put it? They kept almost working.
Yeah.
People would like me in the meeting, but I would disappoint them when the first draft came in. And so I realized a lot later that what I was doing was I was going to meetings. I could get a meeting at that time, talking the late 80s, early 90s. I could get a meeting. They'd listen to me. But then, if I got the gig, my heart wasn't in it.
Yeah.
And I was doing it to survive.
Yeah.
Financially. So, which is a nice way of saying I was doing it for the money.
Yeah.
And I didn't work in movies that I didn't believe in one way or another, but my heart wasn't really in it. And so what was really going on was that I was making money at meetings. I would go to the meeting. No, seriously, I realized this last winter. I was thinking a lot about my past, and I was like, what was I really doing, man? I would go to the meeting. I would be entertaining. I would be a little more verbal than they were used to. And I wasn't a Hollywood type. And so I'd get the deal to write the treatment. Okay, well, the treatment, you're talking about an official deal to write a treatment back then was $15,000, $20,000.
Wow.
And
the treatment would be what, like 20 pages long or something, or?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'd get the deal to write what they call a draft and a set. Your deal is you're going to get paid so much for the first draft, then so much for a revision, and then so much for the final polish. And you get paid as you go along. And about every year or so, I would get a draft and a set. Well, that was plenty of money for me. You're talking about,
Yeah.
With the money I was making as a newspaper man, I was pulling good money for a while.
Yeah.
But it was also, fake.
Yeah.
Just say it out loud. It was fake. I could do the meetings. You ask about meetings. You go in there. The woman who played in Daisy, the woman who was discovered in the Last Picture Show.
Oh, Sybil Shepherd.
Sybil Shepherd.
Yeah.
Right. And they were going to be in this kind of horror, kind of sci-fi movie.
That sounds awful.
And
Was this when after
And this company,
Moonlighting?
this is before Moonlighting,
Okay.
and don't change anything, but do something with the dialogue. And it's really kind of impossible, but I'd get deals like that.
Yeah.
And they were guild deals. You don't get famous on them. But if you get one or two a year, and you've got some other work,
Yeah.
You get by. And now, it seems completely different. Now, and this is what I'm learning as I'm working on this, not an official deal yet, but it probably will be. Now people do what they call decks, DECKS. It's all electronic. They put together an electronic display of using stills that are available online from all kind of movies. An electronic display of what the movie will look like.
Oh my
Sometimes
God.
scene by scene by scene.
Wow.
So
it's like a story.
With the deck.
It's like a storyboard, but with the script or something. Or?
It's like a storyboard, but it's more detailed in the sense that this is going to be the color scheme. This is going to be the look of the actors. This is the actor, but this is the look of the actors. This is the color scheme. This is the progression of scenes. Is maybe you've got something from Gangs of New York, and then you've got something from any movie you want to pick, and another movie, and you're basically just showing the kind of scene it's going to be. And then you're saying, for the picture I'm doing now or thinking about doing, I was asked what color scheme do you see here?
Wow.
What's it like?
That sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
Yeah.
But they're really fanatic about it. They love making these decks now.
Wow.
It's like a video game.
Huh.
And I went, well, not like Nightmare Alley, because the color scheme and the production and the set design ate up the actors.
Yeah.
That's all you were looking at. And it totally ate up the actors. The actors almost didn't exist. But if you see the original film, in that very spectacular black and white with Tyrone Power, acting against type, because he'd been typed as a handsome star.
Yeah.
You see the movie. You're looking at the story. In this Nightmare Alley, you're just looking at the scenes.
Yeah.
And the actors run around in them.
Yeah, that's really funny that you bring that up, because I think you and I were talking. I was asking you a couple of months ago if you had seen the original Nightmare Alley, because I had just watched it, and I was telling you.
If you asked me that, I did see the original.
Yeah, and I was. It's funny that you bring it up, because that's I in the last couple of weeks I think I watched the new one, and you're right about that. Yeah, that's exactly how it is. It's the scenery and the ambience of it eats up the acting for sure. Like, that's not something I remembered from the new one. I didn't remember the actors, and I didn't remember the story so much even. But the original one, you definitely do. Like, that's on full display. Not that the scenery in the old one is bad at all, but it's not overpowering.
It serves the story.
Right.
When you get this overpowering production, it doesn't serve the story.
Right.
And what I said to the person we're working with, until there's some kind of actual deal, I don't want to use names, but what I said to this person was, well, like Gangs of New York, it's a picture I like a lot, but you get really good production, but you remember the story. You're looking at the characters. Even though the production is very, very detailed, the colors don't jump out at you. You're interested in what's going on. You're interested in seeing that world, and the characters dominate. This has got to be that way. It's a period piece. You're going to be interested in getting it right, but not so much so that not so bright and velvety and all this. I mean, we're looking at basically carnival bums who are using this new toy, cranking camera, and especially in those early days, it was not romantic. It was fun, but it wasn't romantic. You're not going to get a noir kind of look on that. So, dot, dot, dot. Did you like Gangs of New York?
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time, but yeah, I'm not sure how true historically it was, but yeah, it's definitely well acted and well put together. I guess they built that entire little city, right, in Italy or something. Is that right?
I don't know where they built it, but it's funny, with the project we're doing. It's 1914 Los Angeles,
Yeah.
and what they've said is just, I said, you can't shoot it in Los Angeles. There's none of that's left, none of it.
Right.
And they said, that's okay, we'll build it.
Wow.
We can do all kinds of things with matting and with all that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that, what you're seeing in Gangs of New York, isn't actually built.
Right.
It's like you're watching Godzilla on Brooklyn Bridge. It's not built. So, but that example of how the production suits the story is really important. And the fun thing about these decks that they're using is that the writer can actually get to show, because I'm going to make a deck for this, the writer can actually get to show, this is what I'm actually thinking about
Yeah.
the feel of the picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have to be abstract. Because talking about movie meetings, and I think I told you this before, but it's worth repeating, my last film deal was in 2008. And I hadn't done anything in a while. I hadn't wanted to. Again, somebody who liked an old script of mine called me, and can you do this? And the director flew to Lubbock. I didn't want to going to L.A., drive all the way to L.A. At the time I didn't fly. Drive all the way to L.A. just to take a movie meeting.
Yeah.
And he flew to Lubbock to take the movie meeting. And I wrote down, as I learned to do in meetings, I wrote down a lot of what we said as we said it. Because training as a film critic, I don't mean being trained as a film critic, but getting my footing as a film critic. You learn to write fast in the dark while you're looking at something else, if you're going to make notes. And you can read them if you type them right away. And, excuse me, I would do that in film meetings, because you come to the next film meeting, and very often they'd forget what they said. They're having meetings all the time, for one thing. That's what they do. And they'd forget what they said. They insist they didn't say it. I like to pull out the notes and say, yeah, you said it. You saw me write this.
Yeah.
And this guy said, it was a revision of the script. This guy said, okay, this scene, do whatever you want here. I wrote that down about 4 times in various places in the script. What I didn't know was his do whatever you want and my do whatever you want were totally different sentences, totally different thoughts.
Right.
What he meant, that I found out to my chagrin and his mutually, because I liked working with him, what he meant was, make this scene come alive. I meant was reinvent the story. And though we were talking the same language, we weren't hearing the same language. And, that sounds like it could be a marriage, but
yeah.
It was just business. And I thought, that's my last script. That's the last time I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
But this thing comes along that Jazz and I have been working on together, which we've never done, and we found we really like collaborating on this thing. And here I am again in the film business. Max Sennett said that people who get a little taste of show business, they always want some more. And there's real truth in that.
Yeah.
Because once this thing looked like it was worth doing, I was off to the races again.
Yeah.
It was, or a better metaphor is when the old boxer when the bell rings.
Yeah.
I came out swinging, and I wouldn't do it if I was doing it alone. But with Jazz doing, with the two of us doing it, makes it something. I loved collaborating with Big, and I never collaborated with anybody else. And I'd forgotten how good it was to collaborate, to have somebody to talk to about it.
Yeah.
Because, when you're writing a novel, when you're writing a poem, when I was writing my column, you're all alone.
Right.
That's, you've written, you're all alone. And collaboration is basic rule. I think I told you this once, but it's worth repeating too. The basic rule of collaboration is if one of you doesn't like it, a certain idea, it doesn't go in. You don't fight about it. You just ditch it. Think of something else. And if somebody's uncomfortable with it, with an idea you have, and you talk about it, and they're still uncomfortable, ditch it. Because it's going to stick in your craw in the script.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, there's going to be a fight. And I've seen people collaborate. I've heard about other collaborations. And Big and I never had an argument. It was real simple. If it didn't work for one of us, it didn't go in. We never even had to agree on that. We just did that. And Jazz and I are having a good time on this. Also, with Big and I did the typing, and he did the pacing. With Jazz and I, she's doing the typing, and I'm doing the pacing.
Yeah.
Usually one person is taking it down, and both people are talking. But Big used to say, he'd get an idea, and he'd talk about it, and say, okay, make marks. And I'd start typing.
Well, it's something you're passionate about too. The subject matter is something you know a lot about. So
yes,
good.
Yes, it does help to have a reality check in terms of what we can do and what we can't do in terms of the time. Because in a piece like that, the environment becomes one of the characters. Like in Gangs of New York and in Nightmare Alley, the environment.
Right. It's one of the characters. Yeah.
And, the original Nightmare Alley, the environment was a cooperative character. And in the remake, the environment didn't work. It was too strong for the characters. So when you're doing something that's set in a time and place, you have to be, it gives you parameters, that I find very helpful.
Well, it sounds like a pretty different scene now than it was when you first started writing scripts, though.
Well, the people we're working with, our friend an agent and a manager and a producer, a production team.
Wow.
That didn't used to happen.
Yeah.
Having a whole production team. That started happening. Must have started happening in the 90s, or actually maybe probably more recently than that. And that was a very different deal. And now I understand, in part, you know, in the movie credits in the beginning,
Yeah.
these days,
Yeah.
you'll see 5, 6, 7
Right.
production companies.
Right. Yeah.
And you go, who's making this damn movie anyway?
Yeah.
And that's how they're working now.
Yeah, and that's true for
production companies are big enough to do the movie by itself.
Yeah, that's true even for
for
commercials. It's true for commercials too. Even like any kind of production, there's like these little production companies, right? And I guess when you were starting out, it was just the studio.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was the last gasp of the studios.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting. I never thought about that. Yeah.
I mean, now, the person we're working with, she just made a picture last year in Georgia.
Yeah.
Georgia's got all the production facilities and very few restrictions.
Yeah.
Before Texas got so unbearably hot for half the year, Texas had a lot of that. I'm sure they've lost a bunch of it because you just can't shoot in that heat. And it was more than 100 degrees in Austin for the better part of 3 or 4 months, and the same in Lubbock. You can't shoot in that kind of heat.
Yeah. Yeah, I was watching this show that was supposed to take place in Long Beach, and I was like, that can't be Long Beach, and I went and looked, and it was in Georgia that they were actually filming it in. Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, I remember that TV show Heroes. The first season of which I thought was pretty good, and then they just didn't know what to do with the concept. That happens a lot with good TV shows. They die in the second year. But this cheerleader was supposedly in Midland, Texas, except for the hills in the background.
Yeah.
I looked at that. That is nowhere in West Texas. There's no hills like that anywhere in West Texas. Midland is in the middle of flat oil field desert, much more so than Lubbock. You can grow things in Lubbock like cotton and stuff. Nothing grows like that in Midland. And that was Georgia too. So.
Did you ever?
Some, but I hope it's been useful.
Do you ever have a really greasy producer experience, just a really bad experience with like a studio head or producer or something like that?
As a matter of fact, there was a guy who, I don't want to get sued, so I'm not going to tell his name. He wasn't in the business that long because I stopped seeing his name. But we had a meeting with him, and it was like this stereoscopic thing. We were in his office, and while we're meeting and all trying to be pleasant and everything, me and Big, he is being a total shit to his secretary.
Yeah.
He's coming in and out, and he's being cruel and like that. And we left the meeting, and we went to get a cup of coffee because we were both uncomfortable. It was a good project. It felt like a good project. And I said, or Big said to me, or I said to him, because I really don't know who said this, which of us. After we sign a paper and are working for him, that's how we're going to get treated.
Yeah.
And even tolerating it in the room alienating the employee, that this person that you're signing up.
Right.
They tolerate it when you're not working for them. They're going to tolerate it when you're working for them. They're going to have to. And so we never did that deal. There was another meeting with a famous producer who was at the time the studio boss of MGM, and we were with a good producer, a guy who later became a studio boss himself. Good guy, actually. And we're sitting there and we're pitching this story, a comic story about garbage men. It was me and Big. I'm doing most of the pitching. And this guy very rudely suddenly says, I shouldn't even be taking this meeting. This meeting should have been done by Vice President. I shouldn't even be doing this. And I don't know what he expected to say. Our producer and Big didn't say anything, but I just looked him in the eye. And he looked me in the eye. He was a formidable guy. But when I was a kid, one of the ways that I became a person who didn't get beat up was I decided when I was about 12, anybody who looked me in the eye, no matter who they were, I wouldn't look away first. Now I don't care. I'll look away. It's not a big deal. But at the time, it was a big deal. Yeah. I wouldn't look away first, no matter what. I'd rather die than look away. And that's the guy that this movie head was in the office with. He's scowling at me with unblinking eyes, and I just looked at him. And I would have looked at him for an hour and a half. I was not going to say a word.
Yeah.
And Big got the message, and our producer got the message. They just kind of relaxed, and I just looked at this guy. Until finally he had to say something.
Yeah.
And then we left.
Have you ever met Bud Schulberg?
No, I never had.
He came to mind because I was thinking of the book he wrote, See Jimmy Run. I don't know if you've ever read that book.
What Makes Sammy Run?
What Makes Sammy Run? Right, that's right. Yeah.
What Makes Sammy Run?
Yeah.
Louis B. Mayer who was the head of Metro Goldwyn Mayer and one of the big moguls of the golden age of Hollywood.
Yeah.
He said to Bud Schulberg at this meeting, Schulberg's father, who was, I think he was also a Bud. I don't know though, but his father worked for Mayer, and he said, I'm going to deport your son. I'm going to deport him.
Really?
His father, I said, Louis, he was born here. You can't deport him.
Because of the book?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Because in part it was because it was an accurate portrait of what went down at the time.
Right. Yeah. I've always that's interesting because I've always wondered what the reaction was among the studios to that book, and I was always wondering how popular that book was when it came out. Was it a popular book?
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
Like Sammy Run was a bestseller, all that kind of thing.
Wow.
After all, it was inside Hollywood.
Right. Yeah.
It was really the first book of inside Hollywood studios that was a popular book. I mean, Nathaniel West wrote.
Right. Miss Lonely Hearts or
not Miss Lonely Hearts. It's in my shelf.
I know the one you're talking
about.
Day of the Locust, right? Yeah.
And that's a marvelous book. It's a great book about media. It's a great book about the Hollywood of the 30s. But it's not really about the studio heads and all that.
Yeah.
So What Makes Sammy Run people that the magazines were interested in,
Mm-hmm.
and so it became a very popular book.
Hmm.
Has it ever been made into a movie?
No, I don't think. I highly doubt it.
I
and,
doubt it too. One of us would remember it if it was.
but Bud Schulberg went on to write scripts, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
No,
he's an interesting character. He started the Watts Artist Workshop, which was I guess he just went down there after the riots and found an empty building and opened it up as a writer's workshop and put a flyer in the door. And I guess for like the first 2 or so months nobody ever came by, and then slowly people started coming by there, and it started really flourishing, and they built a stage and like a speaker system, and they started putting on plays there, and having, you know, poetry workshops and whatnot, and dance workshops there. And then one of the guys who started hanging out there, he was a black guy, and he had been kind of blackmailed into working for the FBI, and the FBI talked him into firebombing the building, and he burnt down the building. Yeah, in like 1972 or something. But yeah, Schulberg is a very interesting character, and but I read that book. My father actually gave me that book a long time ago, and I kind of did some research on it, but I never got a good feel on how Hollywood reacted to that book, and you know, how his career might have been affected. I had no idea that his father was also in the studio system. But he wrote. Did he write on the waterfront?
I think he had something to do with it. I think he and Kazan wrote it together.
Huh. Yeah.
Because I was just thinking, associating his name with Kazan.
Yeah. Well, why don't we stop there for this week? And
Okay.
yeah, that was good.